Number 11, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 3, Chapter 21. It's still November 9th, Saturday night, Bayside Grill, Newport, California. Cal and Ellie Vaughn, owners of the Bayside Grill, looked up with bright smiles as a large party came in the door. The patrons who were there all stood and applauded as young Eric led the group through the restaurant. He smiled and nodded and thanked people for their kindness, stopping to shake a few hands and sign a few autographs. They made their way to the far back right side of the place through double French doors into a large space with long tables set up to form a U. He handed the last autograph back to a patron and caught up to Jordan. "Sorry, Jordan." She smiled at him. "Don't be sorry. I imagine this is how it's going to be for you. I'm happy for you. And if I wasn't so incapacitated, I'd stay by your side to support you." He drew a deep breath. "The movie comes out next month before Christmas. If it does, well, stuff like this could be crazy for a while." Let's see. "If it does well, stuff like this could be crazy for a while." "Well, hopefully. I'll be too busy with my softball season to even notice." He nodded. "Hopefully." Servers came into the room immediately to get drink orders and to set the pre-ordered appetizers on the table. The Bayside was one of the restaurants that Ricky had invested in and then helped them later to expand. The food was good, clean, and healthy. The bar was giant, and it was a good place for celebrations. The party room was added later when they realized people wanted a place to go after events, a place still open with room for large groups. Ricky was talking to Jewel, pointing things out to her and letting her know that her restaurant is going to be just as successful. The children's food was also pre-ordered and brought in immediately, and once everyone else had given their food order, Grandmaster Keno called the group to order. "So everyone, it's almost 10 o'clock, and the kids are tired, and as soon as their bellies are full, they're going to pass out. So Shelly and I are going to head out early as soon as we have a bite to eat. So I just wanted to say thanks to you all. And again, Eric, congratulations for a battle well fought. I'm proud of you. Now, you've already heard from me tonight, so I'm going to give a chance for someone else to speak. I love you all." He sat down. Joey rose. "Well, Eric, you know, we don't ever get tired of hearing what you have to say, but I just want to say a few things. First, to my nephew. Man, you really tore it up tonight. I realized you were fighting an inner battle once Eric said what he did. I get it. I hope you feel cleansed and fresh and ready to move forward now. I'm happy to relinquish the championship to you. I hope you think about continuing in future challenges, but as for tonight, that was a hell of a good job." He raised his glass. "To young Eric." Everyone raised a glass, and the kids had fun clinking their glasses of water together. Ricky stood next. "Well, of course, I want to say how proud I am of my son." He nodded. "Really proud, Eric. You worked hard. You gave it your all, and I commend you." He lifted his glass. "To Eric." They drank, and he continued. "I also want to address a few others. Logan, Grace, and Toby. Good grief, you guys are gifted. Logan and Grace, I don't think I've ever heard a better rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. You were mesmerizing." "Hear, hear," the table said, to Logan and Grace. "Well," Grace said, "it's Logan who's so good, and I'll sing with him anytime, any place. I'm already trying to talk him into doing an album with me." Logan grinned and looked at Melody sitting beside him. She smiled up at him. He looked back at Grace. "Well, let's try to find some time this year, coming year, to make that happen." "And I just want to say one more thing," Ricky added. "Dad." He stopped and got his emotions under control. "You'd only been out of the hospital a day. One day, when we met together during Bree's and Taylor's birthday party and decided to ask young Eric to compete. And during this whole 10 weeks, not once did you say one thing about being weak or tired or incapacitated. Not only did you work tirelessly to train Eric and Gabe, but you worked hard to get your own body back into good working condition. You also took care of your family. You helped Shelley through some struggles. You took care of your new children. You counseled many of us. You planned and arranged sparring days and supported Taylor's new love of volleyball. I know you don't want praise and accolades for doing these things, but I just want to point out the example you've set. to the rest of the family. Because if any of us could be even close to how you serve us all, then that would be an amazing accomplishment. Forgive me for this, Dad, but I'm still traumatized by almost losing you 12 weeks ago. It now seems like a distant memory, but it's only been 12 weeks. And look at you. You're back in shape. Maybe not completely, but so close. Dad, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so grateful to you for who you are and what you've taught. Not just what you taught me, but all of us. He raised his glass. To my dad. Everyone stood and raised their glass reverently and drank. The food arrived, and while they ate, several other people took a turn to address the family. Toby spoke of his deep and abiding friendship with Ricky, who was exactly like his father. Justin spoke of his longtime friendship with Eric. Cam spoke of how Grandmaster Keno was like a father to him and how he changed his life. And Jeffy spoke of her training when she fought in the challenge and how her father gave her complete confidence. Mickey spoke of her husband Jeff and the entire Keno family and how much they helped her overcome her traumas. And Bella and Breeze both spoke of Shelley and how she was just like her husband, always serving, always helping. Bree seconded that. Logan also spoke of the entire family and then held his phone up for all to see. Hey everyone, Jojo and Mark said, I just wanted to say congrats to the champ there, and we love you all and miss you all. Did you win? Jordan asked. We did, Jojo answered. Good job, way to go. All right, everyone answered. The family got quiet when one of the new members of the group stood up. The small woman stood, wringing her hands. May I say something? She asked quietly. Of course, Bree said quickly. Jules smiled. I just want to say, I can't thank you people enough for how you've come into my life and changed my world. She turned to young Eric. You came into our home with all of your love and kindness, and for the first time ever, I felt the safety and strength of a true man, a male presence that I've never felt before. My own father was weak. My first husband was sick and therefore had a weakness. My second husband was weak, and eventually that weakness turned into evil. But you, Eric, you were strong and confident and powerful and kind. So very kind to me and my children. And then you introduced me to your father, and I understood where you got that from. And your mom, she's the best friend that anyone could have. And your sister, who befriended my children and cared for them and unselfishly made my daughter Josie feel like she was important and my daughter Jordan feel like a true sister. And then I met your grandfather, and he counseled me, and he counseled my Josie and my Jordan, and again, I see where it comes from. My life has changed, and I feel light and happy and hopeful, and like God is real. And all of that is because of you coming into our lives and the way your family serves the world and teaches the world. Do you see how much you teach and change the world just through your example? I love you all so much, and I just thought I should stand and let you know that. And I'm a very shy person, so you have to know that this is an amazing thing I'm doing. Oh, you're going to do more amazing things than this, Bree said. The group chuckled and nodded. Alec then stood and spoke and pretty much echoed what Jules said. The Kenos were exponentially changing the world. Desi then gasped just as Alec finished speaking. He glanced down. She was looking at her phone, and she looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. The rest of the group waited. And Jeffy asked, Desi, are you okay? Desi nodded and held up her phone. I just got a text, and it's... She stopped and sniffed and went on. It's from my father. She looked at Alec and then at Ricky. It says, Destiny, I'm reaching out to you. I would like to see you. I want to apologize. Will you come to the house tomorrow? Jordan looked up at young Eric with a smile. Eric smiled, and so did Ricky and Bree. Desi, that is wonderful, Bree said. So are you going? Of course, she said with a huge smile. She quickly texted him back. Yes, Daddy, what time? At 1, after church for lunch. And bring Alec if he'll come. We'll be there, heart emoji. She looked up and read the rest of the text to everyone. It's like a miracle, she cried. It is definitely God's work, Ricky said softly. A server came in to see what was needed and take orders for dessert. Once she left, Jason spoke. Well, this has been an extraordinary night. So many good things happening, and our hearts are obviously full. I, too, am full of gratitude for each of you. I just want to pass along some information to you. The two kids, young Eric and Logan, caught yesterday were doing mean TikTok challenges. Mr. Jeremiah Cobb has decided to press charges, not because he's angry, but because they've targeted him several times, and he thinks it's the only way they'll learn a lesson. So, Jordan, you are welcome to jump on the bandwagon. If you do, you will give more credence to Mr. Cobb's concerns. Both of you could have been hurt badly. He could have hit his head, and you could have tumbled down the stairs and broken your neck. So, we'll need a decision. The parents are still very angry, not with their children, but with us, for kicking them out of the arena. Both of the Duprees have been temporarily removed from the board until the board can convene and do it properly. Now, as for the concessions manager, he's been fired. It didn't take much digging to find that he's been fining the vendors and concession workers and pocketing the money. Eric Sr. shook his head. I'm not sure how this happened, but we have to do better. We own the majority of that complex, and we can't let something like a few bad apples ruin our good name. Justin nodded. We do have to do better. And what happened is one of the board members died, and his children sold off the shares through improper channels. And all it takes is one irresponsible person on the board who allows one bad hire, and the place can go downhill fast. I suggest we set up a series of checks and balances before anything like this happens again. I thought we had those checks and balances, Eric Sr. said. Well, we'll make better ones, Justin offered. Well, anyway, this is not a place for this discussion. Eric Sr. glanced at Gabe. Gabriel Tanner, we haven't heard from you. Gabe smiled. Well, I figured I hogged the light yesterday. This is my brother's night. He grinned. But as long as you called on me, they all chuckled. I just want to say how much I love you guys. I love sitting here listening to you all interact with each other. I always find it really interesting and informative and always inspiring, heartwarming. I'll just add my congrats to this beast over here. I mean, Eric, you slayed it. 3 knockouts. So cool. And I can't say that without saying how great your teachers are. Your dad, your granddad, your uncles, everyone. So awesome. He shrugged. That's all I got, he said with a frown. Well, that was plenty, Taylor said with a giggle. Gabe's brow furrowed and he put his hand on his stomach and gave a soft moan. Taylor looked at him. What's wrong? I don't know. Weird pain, like cramps. Jeffy also frowned and put her hand on her abdomen. She was breathing hard. Jeffy, Cam asked, are you feeling Gabe's pain? She nodded, but then shook her head as she moaned. No, she's not, Gabe finally said. I'm feeling her pain. Shelley's eyebrows rose. Jeffy, are you in labor? You know what? I think I am. All night long I thought I was feeling everyone else's discomfort, but I guess it's been me. It's strange, though. It feels so separate from myself. Like it's not really me. Cam looked at his watch. Well, has it ended yet? Jeffy blew out a breath and nodded. Yeah. Honey, how long has this been going on? Jeffy shrugged. Pretty much all day. But I'm not sure I'm actually in labor. Maybe just some Braxton Hicks. Honey, you know that those don't hurt. You were in pain. Was I? Not really. Yes, really, Gabe said. That was intense pain. So, Gabe, Logan began, do you think you're becoming like psychic? I mean, like Jeffy? No. I don't know what's happening to me, but I'm not like Jeffy. I can't just go into people's minds and talk to them, but every once in a while I see something or dream something. But this feeling her pain thing, that's new, so I don't know what's happening. Bree pulled out her cell. Well, I'm going to call the midwife now because she's a good 30 minutes away. Well, Eric, if Jeffy's going into labor, we need to finish up here and get these kids home and into bed, Shelley said, so that I can be free to tend to her until the midwife gets to the house. Eric was thinking, Something significant was happening if Gabe was picking up on it. Eric, Shelley said again. He snapped out of it and smiled and nodded. Just let me do something real quick. He stood and walked around the table to Jeffy and laid his hands on her head. Cam, join me. Cam stood. Pull her chair out from the table, Eric ordered. Cam did so. Ricky, Joey. They both stood, and all of them circled around Jeffy. Both Jeffy and Gabe moaned again. Cam looked at his watch. It's only been 3 minutes. Good grief, Gabe said. He was breathing hard. I gotta get out of here. How do you women do this? The women giggled. Bless his heart, Bree said. Can you block it? I don't know how to block it, Gabe said with a groan. He groaned a few more times. It's starting to ease up. Jeffy giggled. It's not that bad to me. I'm barely feeling it. Maybe Gabe is absorbing the pain for me. Is it over? Eric asked. Jeffy nodded. He put his hands on her head. Cam, Ricky, and Joey did too. Eric blessed her in Jesus' name. He called for both Jeffy and the baby boy to be healthy and strong and protected from any dark forces. He called for no complications, and he asked for protection. He called down the light of Christ to surround them. Jeffy suddenly felt transported to another world. These strong spiritual men were surrounding her, blessing her, protecting her. She felt as if she were transported to heaven for a moment. It was beautiful and peaceful, and there was no fear or sadness, only love and joy. She saw many spirits or angels or beings of light or something, both male and female, and she had a knowing that she was looking at spirits who were waiting to be born into their family. One male in particular smiled at her and gave her a thumbs up, and then suddenly the blessing was ended and she was back in the chair in the restaurant. As soon as the blessing ended, everyone began gathering purses and cell phones. Ricky paid the tab. Miss Shelley, Melody said, do you want me to come to the house and get the kids to bed for you, and so that you and Mr. Keno can do what you need to do for Jeffy? Shelley nodded. That would be great, but be sure to call your parents and let them know why you're late. Melody immediately pulled out her phone, but everything stopped when Cam helped Jeffy to stand. The moment she stood up, there was a splash on the floor. Her water broke. Uh-oh, Jeffy said. She doubled over. Oh, no. I think the baby is coming right now. We have stuff in the car in case she went into labor somewhere other than home, Cam said. I'll be right back. The owners of the restaurant came running to see what they could do and were told to simply keep everyone away for a while. Grunting, Gabe dropped to his knees. I gotta get out of here. I can't stand it. Young Eric and Logan grabbed Gabe under his arms and pulled him up and took him from the restaurant. They drug him all the way out into the far end of the parking lot. Better? Young Eric asked. Gabe nodded. Yeah, I think so. Inside the restaurant, the women gathered round Jeffy as she knelt on the floor on the blankets and pillows Cam brought in. No one panicked. Jeffy was a doctor. Cam, Joey, Jason, and Ricky all were certified EMTs. Bree was on the phone to the midwife, and Lori Lee was an APRN. I'm sorry, everyone, Jeffy said. I swear I only felt a little bit of cramping. It's okay, baby, Cam said softly. We got this. Eric Sr. spoke. To protect Jeffy's privacy, us men will turn our backs. Cam, if you need assistance, Ricky will help you. Just call him. Ladies, do what you want. I know Jeffy won't mind if you stay and watch the miracle about to take place, or leave if you need to. Well, I'll take the children out, Melody said quickly. Eric nodded. Thank you. Here's the keys to the car. It's kind of cool out there for them, so you can get them into their car seats. Yes, sir, she smiled. Come on, kiddos. Let's go find Logan and young Eric and Gabe. I'll help, Bella said. Come on, Em. I will too, Bree said as she lifted Ledger. Sophia, grab Kel's hand and follow me. Boys, Jeff said to his kids, go out in the parking lot and stay with Gabe and the guys. Yes, sir, Daniel said quickly. I'd like to stay and watch Jeffy, but I need to sit, Mickey said softly. Jeff immediately grabbed a chair and set it so Mickey could sit and still be able to watch the birth of the baby. Mickey herself was due in about 4 weeks, and she wanted to watch a birth from a different perspective other than the person giving birth. Jewel chose to leave the room, taking Josie and Jamie with her. Jordan found a chair and sat. No way was she going to miss the birth of Dr. Juneflower Keno's baby. She knew she would treasure this experience always. Jeffy moaned as the next contraction hit. Kimmy knelt down by her. This is so like you, Jeffy, she said softly, making Jeffy giggle. Cam got Jeffy's clothes off of her from the waist down and asked Jeffy to let him see what was happening. She lay down and allowed him to look. Well, he said with a smile, our son has a head full of dark hair. Jeffy smiled and then groaned as the next contraction hit. Oh, Lord, now this one hurts. Oh, hurts bad. She struggled to get back to a squatting-like position. Lori knelt down next to Cam. Jeffy, you know how to breathe. Breathe and relax your body. Come on, breathe with me. Jeffy nodded and breathed. Shelley wiped a cool cloth over Jeffy's face. You're doing so good, sweetie. It won't be long now, and you're going to be holding your sweet baby boy. Jeffy smiled. Taylor knelt down on the other side of Jeffy. Aunt Jeffy, I love you so much. Jeffy's eyes filled with tears. Aw, Taylor, I love you too. You're going to have a new cousin any minute. I know, and I'm so glad you didn't send me away. This is the most beautiful and amazing thing I've ever seen. Jeffy let out a long growl. Cam, I need to push. He nodded. Go ahead, push with your next contraction. She did, and being so strong, the baby's head emerged. And then a minute later, Elijah Cameron Keno Wallace was born into this earthly realm. Cam caught him and wrapped his son in clean white towels. Jeffy lay down, and Cam gently laid the child on his mother's chest. The people who'd stayed in the room during the birth felt almost a warm breeze swirl around them and heard what they would describe later as a soft whisper of love. Jeffy peered into the face of her baby boy. He wasn't crying. He only made soft baby sounds as he slowly stretched and moved around. He was so beautiful. His eyes blinked at her and seemed to focus on her, looking into her soul. Oh, sweet boy, she murmured. Cam leaned over and placed a kiss on his wife's forehead and then on his son's head as well. I promise before you and God and everyone here that I will never abandon you like you did me. I will never leave you, and I will try with everything in me to be a good father. And I'll take my examples from the men in this room. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. New scene. Out in the parking lot, Bella and Breeze put their kids into their cars and turned on some soft music. Logan saw that Melody was tasked to get the 5 Keno children into the vehicle and went to help her. Hey, Melody, let me help you. She smiled as she brushed some of her hair out of her face so she could see to fasten Angelina's seatbelt. Thanks, Logan. I don't want to get in the car, Nate complained. Hey, buddy, it's late, and you should be in bed asleep right now, but since your bed isn't here, you got to get in your car seat. If you all get in your car seats and say a prayer for your sister Jeffy and her baby, then I'll tell you the rest of the story we started yesterday, Melody said. Logan lifted Nate into his seat and fastened his seatbelt. Who's next? He said quickly. Me, Noah said, lifting his arms up toward Logan. Melody then lifted Abraham while Logan grabbed Manny. There, Logan said with a nod of his head. Who wants their blankets? Melody asked. I do, both Angelina and Manny said. She pulled their blankets out of a basket on the floorboard and tucked them around their little bodies. There. Everybody comfy? Logan smiled at her. Before you start the story, hold on just a second. He ran to where the guys were standing. Hey, guys, Melody is going to tell us a story. Really? Young Eric chuckled. Well, this sounds like a real treat. Young Eric, Gabe, Daniel, Jeremy, Jamie, Josie, and Logan walked back over to the Keno's large van and stood around. Melody stood in one of the side doors. The others stood around the other side door and the driver's side door and the passenger door. Okay, Melody, Logan said with a smile. We want to hear the story too. You can go ahead now. She made a face and rolled her eyes. Okay. Well, so let's see. Where did we leave off yesterday? She asked the children. It was pouring down rain, Nate said. And they fell down onto slippery wet grass, Angelina said. And they slid all the way down the big hill, Noah added. And they couldn't go any further when they got to the bottom of the hill because the ground became a big lake, Nate said. Right. So what did I say they were going to try to do? Melody asked. They were going to make a raft. What's a raft? Manny said. Well, a raft is kind of like a boat, except it's flat, and it floats on the water. So the children could make one and sit on the raft and float across the big lake that was made by the rain, Melody answered. Show us a picture, Nate said. Okay, before I show a picture, why don't you try to imagine it in your head? Listen how I tell you they make it and try to see it in your head. And then we'll pull up a picture and we'll see if the picture looks different from how you pictured it. She paused with a smile. Okay, so it was pouring down rain and the children ran down the hill, but it was raining so hard that the green grass got slippery and they slipped and fell and slid on their bottoms the whole rest of the way down the hill. And when they got finally to the bottom, they were... How many children were there? Gabe asked. Melody smiled. How many children were on the hill, Abe? He frowned a minute, then looked up. 3. Right. Okay. So they got to the bottom of the hill and... Gabe went on, I thought since there are 5 Keno children that there might be 5 of these kids. He raised his eyebrows. Young Eric chuckled. Yeah, there should be, Daniel Davis said. Melody raised her brows right back. Go ahead, Nate, and tell them why there aren't 5 kids on the hill. He frowned. Because 2 of them were saying mean words to each other, and they didn't get to go outside to climb the hill. Yeah, Angelina said. They had to go to their room and sit and think about how they could be nice to each other, and the other children got to go outside and climb the hill. Yeah, Noah said, and it was really sad because all the children really loved to climb the hill, and they watched the magic clouds be animals, but they didn't get to go because they wouldn't stop being mean. Logan smiled. So, you think if they had stopped saying mean things, they may have been able to go? They all nodded their heads. Any more questions, Gabe? Melody asked. He shrugged. Not presently. So they got to the bottom of the hill and they saw that it had rained so much that the whole field that they had walked across earlier was now a giant lake. Oh no, how in the world are they going to get home? And then one child, his name was Noah, he said, I know, we'll build a raft. How do you build a raft? Angelina asked. You take a bunch of sticks and tie them together, Abe said. We can use my sticks, Emmanuel said, because he remembered that when they were walking across the field earlier, he was collecting sticks, and he laid them down when they started climbing the hill. Melody clapped her hands together. So they went to the place where Emmanuel put the sticks, and sure enough, there they were. Together, the children took all the sticks and laid them side by side. There must have been hundreds of sticks. How did one little kid find and carry hundreds of sticks in his little hands? Gabe said. Melody glared up at him, making everyone chuckle. Because Emmanuel was super strong. Each of the children had a superpower. They do? Nate asked. They do now, Melody grumbled. So now that the hundreds of sticks are all laid out straight, what are they going to use to put them together? Gabe asked. Melody's eyes narrowed. Well, it just so happens that Angelina's superpower is her hair, and she can pull one hair out of her head and make it as long as she wants it to be, and it never, ever breaks. So all she has to do is pull one hair out of her head. So what are the other... Logan put Gabe in headlock, and young Eric slapped his hand over Gabe's mouth. They pushed him away. You're out of questions, bro. Melody went on to tell the children how they put the raft together and how it looked. And once she finished describing the raft in detail, she asked Logan to pull up some pictures of rafts on his phone. The children passed the phone around, gazing at the pictures. So, did the raft you thought about in your head match any of the pictures? She asked the children. No, Angelina said softly. What was different? Melody asked. They were all ugly, and mine was pink and pretty. The guys standing around chuckled. Young Eric pulled out his phone when it vibrated, and he read the text. Well, everyone, we now have another cousin, and you kiddos have another nephew. The baby came out of Jeffy's tummy, Noah asked. Yes, it did, Eric said. Gabe blew out a sigh of relief. A few minutes later, the midwife and a private ambulance company arrived, and about 15 minutes after that, the rest of the family began coming out of the restaurant. Everyone started hugging each other and saying goodnight. Jeffy was one of the last to be brought out. The ambulance was there only to transport her and the baby safely home. Logan watched as Melody said her good nights to the children and to his grandparents and started toward her car. Logan's eye caught his grandfather's. "I'll take care of it," Logan said. He ran after Melody. "Hey, Melody, hold up." She turned with a sweet smile on her face. "What you need, Logan?" "Hold on a minute and let me follow you home." "Oh, that's not necessary." "Well, it may not be, but it's after midnight, and we'll all feel better if I make sure you get home safely." She shrugged. "Okay, if you insist. So let me go tell my mom and grab my car. Be right back." She gave a soft laugh. "Okay." He turned and ran after Bella. "Hey, Mom." She turned from getting Emily into her car seat. "What's up, Logan?" "I'm just letting you know that I'll be home soon. I'm just going to follow Melody home to make sure she gets in okay. And then I'll be right home." "Okay, sweetie, thank you for doing that." He rolled his eyes. "Well, the pleasure is literally all mine." Bella smiled. "So, are you two, like, a thing?" He shook his head. "No. Well, at least not yet," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "I'll be home soon. You be careful when you get up to the house and look around you before you get out of the car. And also make sure the garage door is all the way down before you get out of the car." "I promise," she said without argument. She knew he worried about her. He'd saved her life when he was only 11, and he was still very protective. And right now, his father and brother were out of state because of JoJo's football game, so he was even more protective. Logan jumped into his red Range Rover Sport and pulled over behind where Melody was parked to wait for her to pull out. Gabe grabbed Taylor by the hand and pulled her toward his car. He caught her father's eye and pointed at her, and Ricky nodded, giving his permission. He almost drug her over to lean against his car, then moved close and kissed her. She grinned. "What was that for?" "That was because I've been wanting to do that all night and I couldn't get you alone." "Well, we've got from here to the house, which is about 20 minutes. He smiled. "Well, it might take us a little longer." He pulled back and ran his hands over her hair. "So, did you see the baby being born?" She smiled and nodded her head. "It was amazing, Gabe. I mean, like, wow. It's like, you know there's a baby inside, a person, a real person, but it gets much more real when they come out and you can hold them and see them with your own eyes. It was amazing. And you could feel his spirit. It was strong. When he was born, his spirit, it like filled up the room. I can't wait to have my own baby." He smiled at the thought. You make me want to marry you tomorrow and let's just get started making babies." She giggled. "Gabe, that is hot." He nodded. "You're right. It is, and I need to pull back a bit. I can't wait to be a full-fledged agent, making a living, doing what I need to do. Don't worry and don't rush. I'll be here for you when you're ready." "Will you?" "I can't imagine another guy better than you, Gabriel Tanner. I think the question is, will you meet a girl that makes you lose interest in me?" He snorted. "So silly. I gave my life to save you. You're mine. You get that? Do you hear me?" She grinned, loud and clear. He opened the car door for her. Young Eric pulled his car up to pick up Jordan as she exited the restaurant. He jumped out and ran around to help her into the car. He helped her in and ran back around and climbed behind the wheel. Turning toward her, he smiled. "Hey, babe." "Hey, 3. You look so beautiful right now." She smiled. "I can't imagine that I do. I'm so sleepy. And you have to be exhausted." He nodded. "I am. And all I can think about is getting home and you sneaking into my bed tonight and letting me hold you all night long." You've just been through a big battle. Are you sure you don't have that thing you and your dad were talking about when you got back from being kidnapped? That primal thing?" He grinned. "Nope." "Nope, you don't have it?" "Nope, I'm not sure. But at this moment, I don't care about anything." She giggled. I think you have it." He smiled. "Maybe. Then your dad said I'm supposed to be strong for you." "Okay, that's fine. You do that. Let's just see if your strength wins out over me seducing you." Her eyes opened wide. "Eric Kino, you're scaring me." He laughed. "I'm just kidding." He turned his head away. "Maybe." "What?" "Nothing." He put the car in drive and started moving. "So, did you get to see the baby being born?" I did, and wow. First, it looks impossible. And second, it wasn't at all like they portray in the movies. Your Aunt Jeffy was so calm and cool, and she didn't scream and yell, and she pushed like one time, and the baby came out. And three, I mean, he was so beautiful and so sweet and so tiny. There was like this feeling, like overwhelming feeling of love. It makes me want to. She stopped. He grinned. Want to what? Never mind. He gave a knowing smile. You hold that thought. We'll make it happen. Soon, he thought. Very soon. Meanwhile, Melody pulled up into the driveway in front of her home. Logan pulled over in front and jumped quickly out of his car. She was getting stuff out of the back seat and startled as he approached. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. I was just going to walk you to your door, Logan said. Oh, that's very sweet, she said with a smile, but again, not necessary. Well, apparently it is, since I approached you before you even realized it. If I had been a bad guy, you'd be in big trouble right now. She nodded. I guess you're right. She withdrew from the car, holding a gym bag and some shoes and her purse. She looked him over. So, Logan, you said you do all the martial arts stuff too, right? He smiled. Yes. What belt are you? Third Dan. Like Eric, except not like Eric. What do you mean? Well, he'd already been a third degree a year by the time I made mine. Oh, why? He and JoJo got an earlier start than me way back when we were kids, and it's taken me a while to catch up. Why did they get an earlier start? Well, one, because they're a little older, and two, because I wasn't born into the family. I'm adopted. Her eyes opened wide. Oh, I didn't know that. I am so sorry to, grill you on it. He smiled. It's okay. I'm quite happy that I was adopted. My adopted father is the best, and my brothers, JoJo and young Eric and Gabe too, were pretty close. I'm confused. He laughed. Well, JoJo is my actual adopted brother. He's Mark Adams' biological son. My mom is my biological mother, and she married Mark Adams and he adopted me. So JoJo and I became brothers. But JoJo and young Eric, though they are only cousins, always thought of each other as brothers, so I joined that brother club. And then Gabe, he's like one of us, so he was adopted into our brotherhood. How cute. He rolled his eyes. He reached out to take the bag from her. Let me carry that for you. She allowed it. They started up the walk toward her front door. He looked around. You know, the Davis family only lives a couple of miles west of here. Really? A couple of miles west are some really fancy neighborhoods. He shrugged. So, Melody, do you have plans to go to Alec and Desi's wedding this coming Saturday? Well, I haven't really thought about it. I mean, I haven't actually been invited. Well, you are now. Invited, I mean. He sighed. I mean, would you like to go to the wedding? With me? She stopped walking and thought about it for a minute. You mean, like a date? He nodded. Yep, like that. He drew a deep breath because it felt like his heart was pounding out of his chest. He realized if she turned him down, it would be hard to ask again. But he'd do it. He wouldn't give up. She frowned. An actual date. We've been out before, Logan reminded her. Yeah, but I mean, well, I went to see your gig at the coffee shop, and that was nice. But I watched and went home, so I really wouldn't call that a date. And I went with you to watch Taylor's homecoming parade, and then I went straight home. I wouldn't call that a date. But now, this sounds more like a date, and I'm wondering, do you think it's okay for me to go on a date with my employer's grandson? He nodded. I don't see a problem. Well, I can't afford to lose my job. I promise I won't interfere with your ability to do your job. Were you supposed to work Saturday? No, it's just that what if we go on a date and we don't hit it off? Oh, I see what you mean. He thought and then shrugged. Well, if we don't hit it off, then we don't. I won't hold it against you, and neither will my grandparents. You must know we're not that shallow. Besides, it's just a wedding. You won't even be alone with me. It's more like a group activity. She smiled and nodded. I guess I could do that. Just know that my job is very important to me. He nodded. Understood. And your job is very important to Grandma, too. She went through dozens of people who applied for the job and just didn't feel right about anyone until she met you. She wouldn't want to lose you. She feels so blessed to be able to have you help her. Melody smiled. Miss Shelley is so sweet. I just love her. Logan nodded. Me too. So we're on? She sighed. I think so. I'll have to check with my dad because he's already said that this Saturday is going to be a yard day. A yard day? Yeah, you know, the final cutting of the grass, edging the yard, pruning back the trees, bagging the leaves so everything looks nice for the winter, for Thanksgiving and Christmas. He nodded. Got it. But he'll probably let me out of it. Maybe I'll do my part in the evenings after I get home from work this coming week. Cool. Maybe I'll come help you. You don't have to do that. I know, but like my brother says, it's always good to be in service. Which brother is that? Gabe. Oh, yeah, I've heard him say that on his social media. Logan nodded. So? He took out his phone. Could I get your number? Once I find out the exact time we need to be at the wedding, I can text you and let you know what time I'll pick you up. She smiled and took his phone and put in her number, and she handed it back to him. Well, did you enjoy the challenge tonight? Logan asked, trying to keep talking to her a little longer. It was awesome, both last night at the mini mart and tonight at the challenge. It was so much fun, and your family was so impressive, and I'm so happy they won. Tell Miss Shelley again how much I appreciate her inviting our whole family. They had a blast. Logan nodded. I will. They both looked up when the front door opened, and Melody's father stepped halfway out of the door. Oh, hey, Dad, Melody said quickly. Dad, you remember Logan Adams? He stepped all the way out onto the porch and offered his hand. Yes, hello there, young man. You were the one who sang tonight, right? Yes, sir. Well, you did a fine job. Thank you, sir. I was just seeing Melody home since it was so late by the time we got out of the restaurant. Oh, Dad, it was amazing. Dr. Kino, she went into labor and had her baby at the restaurant. Oh, well, that does sound exciting. And she's okay, and the baby's okay? Yes, sir, Logan provided. Everyone is doing great. Good, that's good. Well, it's late, Melody's dad said. Logan smiled and nodded. Yes, sir. Well, good night, Melody and Mr. Keith. Nice to see you again, sir. You too, Mr. Keith said. Night, Melody said with a smile. Logan handed her bag to her father, turned and headed down the walk. Mr. Keith watched him for a minute and then closed and locked the front door. He seems like a good kid, her father said. Melody sighed. He is. I mean, all the Kinos are. He is a Kino? Well, he's an Adams, but he's Miss Shelley and Grandmaster Kino's grandson. Brianna Adams Kino is his father's sister, so she's his aunt, and Joey Adams is his father's brother. Oh, got it. He raised his eyebrows at his daughter. He is a big improvement on Cade. Dad, stop it. You don't still have feelings for him, do you? Dad, please. We broke up. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just saying this Logan kid, he seems interested in you. He sat next to you at the challenge tonight, and I noticed you and he were having a conversation, and he's a member of a very famous family. And they're billionaires. Dad, I don't care how much money they have. Well, I do. It may seem superficial to you, but I want my daughter to have a good life. And that young man is going to be a big deal. He'll probably win a Grammy one day with his connections. Well, if he wins a Grammy, it won't be because of his connections. It will be because he's really good and has worked really hard. And I'm not going out with him because he's rich. That's just sick. You're going out with him? Oh, well, sort of. I mean, it's no big deal. He's going to pick me up to go to a friend's wedding next Saturday. Yard day? Yes. Well, I guess I can let you go. Her mouth dropped open. Are you kidding me? As big a fuss as you made about us all being here to work and get it done as a family? He shrugged. Do you want to go or not? Yes, I want to go, and I was going to ask if I could get my part of the yard work done during the week, like after work. He nodded. That's my girl. Always so responsible, but I would have let you go anyway. She frowned. Why? He seems like a nice kid. You mean a nice rich kid. He shrugged. Let's be real. When someone rich and famous asks you out, you go, even if it's just because you're curious. She sighed. I guess so. I mean, if out of the blue some famous guy walks up to me and asks me out, I'd be curious to know what it's all about, but that's not why I'm going with Logan. Let me ask you this. If it was Kate asking me out for Saturday, would you have let me go? Absolutely not. That guy broke your heart. She sighed. This kid, this Logan Adams, he seems like a nice kid, and he's rich, and he's famous, and it sounds like a winner to me. He's not rich, Dad. His family is. And by the way, he's not a kid either. Well, how old is he? He's 20. 2 years older than you. That's not bad. And he's got a lot going for him, and he's interested in you. It sounds promising. Good grief, you make me want to call it off. I'm not buying that. You won't, because you realize that these ultra-rich and mega-famous people are your ticket to a great life. Dad, I work for these rich, famous people, and I like them. They're like regular people, only nicer, and I make good money, and I do a good job, and I would never think of using them for anything. And besides, this thing about dating Logan is completely separate. Well, all I'm saying is these people can give you opportunities you haven't even thought of, so you need to make sure you endear yourself to them. She rolled her eyes. I can't even. She turned and headed upstairs. Good night, Dad. She frowned. That's not how she saw the Kenos or Logan, and she hoped she wasn't lying to herself. She hoped she was much deeper than using people for their money. And that is the end of chapter 21.